Hi everyone, this is Gurpreet from Database Canvas, and today we are going to discuss about how to visualize the journey over a period of time. It can either be a customer journey or an employee journey or any other dimension which you want to show over a period of time. You can use that. So this particular chart is quite useful when we want to highlight or emphasize an event over a period of time and we want to visualize it over a curved path. So in this particular tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a path for a time series to visualize an event or the journey during a period of time. So without any further delays, let's get started. As you can see in this dashboard, we are trying to visualize the journey of sales over a period of time. So in this case, as you can see on the right hand side, we have a filter over years for the sales. So from 2016 to 2019, we are trying to show the sales number. And on the left hand side, this curved path, you can see this is the journey of the sales over a period of time. And each circle which you see here shows the revenue generated by the sales. So in this case, bigger the circle, the more sale value it has. So I will also show you how you can highlight these events, or if you don't want to show all the sales number over the period of time, you can highlight a particular week or a month in that period where the event occurred and you want to tell a story around that. So we will get on to that. And on the right hand side, you can also see two parameters. One is spacing and the curve distance. So spacing is basically just to increase or decrease the space between these 2 points. So if you have so many points and it can overlap to each other, so you can increase the spacing and the curved path will go further till the bottom. And curve distance is just the distance of these curves. So if you increase the curve distance, you can see how the chart, the path changes. And if you reduce the curves, you can see it's more trying to form in a less curved shape. So these are all dynamic parameters which you can adjust according to the need. So how we can achieve this? So for this, let's start with the blank workbook. And we'll be using sample superstore dataset for this scenario. So I will connect to sample superstore dataset. And first of all, we need to create two parameters. As I showed you earlier, one is for spacing and one is for distance. So I will simply go and create a parameter and name it as spacing. And this will be an integer value. And I want a range. So in this case, I will set the minimum range to 1 and maximum range, we need it as 20. You can use whatever number suits you. You can keep it 30 as well. And the step side, we just need 1. And current value in this case, I will keep it to 10. And I will press OK. And same way, we need to create another parameter called curve distance. And we will keep the data type as integer as well. And the range we need in this case is from minimum, we keep it 0. Maximum, let's keep it 100. And we need the step size of 10. Again, you can adjust the way you want it. This is the standard setting which I'm using. And the current value, I can keep it to 20 or 25, let's say. Click OK. And then we need to create multiple calculations to plot this chart. So first of all, we will create an index calculation. So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to use the index function basically to plot the order date measure on the path. So where you see in this particular dashboard, so we are showing the time series based on the order date. So what I'm trying to use is using the index calculation is to use that function which returns the index of current row in that partition. So for each order date, we are trying to return the row. So if you are using a month or a week, accordingly it will change the index calculation of the row and it will return the index for that particular row. And each of these points are basically used to plot on here. So if in this case we are using week calculation, so So these are individual weeks. If you change the calculation to month, each of these points will be indexed to month calculation. So that's what we are using in here. So when we go here, so I will use index calculation. So as you can see here, so index is basically used to return the index of a current row in the partition. And here I am using to start it from 0. So index -1, so it will start from 0 rather than starting from 1. And then I am using it to multiply with the spacing parameter which we created. So what it is doing is basically just creating the path at equal distance that can be adjusted based on the spacing parameter. So we are just plotting the order date measure for that particular row at an equal distance on the path. So that's the index calculation. Then we will create a segment number calculation. So what it does is we are trying to separate the path in the segment. So I will first of all create this calculation. So as you can see here, what I'm trying to achieve here is the index calculation which we created, we are just dividing it by 180. So what that does is basically used to create a separate segment for the path. So by segment, what I mean is, if you see here in the dashboard, so there are 4 segments, which is minimum requirement to create this path. So one segment is basically from left to right. That's the straight line. That's segment 1. Then this right curved path is the segment 2. Then the third straight line, which is from right to left, is the segment 3. And then from on the left hand side, this curved part is the segment 4. So in order to create this curved path, we need these 4 segments. And for that, we are using that calculation. So if we go back to the calculation, we are simply saying index divided by 180. So that will give us the segment. So if I go back here again on the dashboard, if I hover over to this one, and you see the 5th line, segment number along the order date is 0. And what it is doing is basically it's dividing the index by 180. So index in this case is 112. Right? If we move further, it will be increasing based on the spacing we are using. So if you see here, index is 140. And if we say 140 divided by 180, it will give us the decimal value close to 0. So the segment will be 0 in this case, right? And if we go to the curved path here on the right hand side, you will see the index is 266. So 266 divided by 180, it will give us a value of 1 point something. So we have defined it as a segment 1. And same way, if we go to this curve, the index along the order date is 406. If you see the 4th row, so it is saying 406, and the segment number along the order date is 406 divided by 180, which is 2. So we are keeping it as a integer value, so it rounds off to the lower decimal point. So if 400 divided by 180 is 2 point something, it will give us a value 2. So that way, each of these segments can be calculated automatically. So going back to the calculation, you can see here, we are saying index divided by 180, and then we are saying return me the integer value, which will give us the lowest integer value to that decimal point. So now we have created the segment number. Now we just need to create the coordinates for x-axis and y-axis. So let's start with x-axis, right? So that's a simple one. So I will show you the calculation here. So we are saying, okay, so here I guess I have used the segment number. My calculation might not be. And let me change the naming convention. So I guess the naming convention which I copy pasted here was a bit different. So I will, okay. And where is my segment calculation? So I guess I didn't save the segment calculation. So let me create it again. So segment number calculation, which I was saying, oops, segment number. This is the segment number calculation, which I forgot to create. Okay, so segment number calculation is created. Now let's go back to the x-axis, and in here, so it works fine. So what we are saying here is we are trying to create at least 4 segments. So we are saying if segment number which we have created divided by or modulus 4 is equal to 0, then give me a straight line from left to right. And if the segment number mod 4 equal to 1, then give me a curve on the right. And same way, if modulus 4 equal to 2, then give me a straight line from left to right. It's basically that calculation where we are using. And same way, the curve on the left hand side. So as I mentioned earlier, we need 4 segments basically to draw this path. So that's what we are trying to show here. And in this case, we are hard coding the number of points of each segment to 180 and use the index mixed with the spacing parameter here. So if we change the points here, instead of 180, you can see, you can basically change the number of points on each of these curves. So by that, what I mean is, if we go back to the dashboard again, so the points here, we are saying 180. So if you see, if you see the x-axis along the order date is 0.0, right? Second last row. And if you go at the end, it's 180. So on a one straight line, we are plotting 180 points. If you change the calculation there and you want more points or 270 points, you can do it here. But in this particular example, we are using 180. And same way on this curve, we are using 180 points. But because we are using the spacing parameter, you can adjust. So each at the interval of 10, if you see, it started from 0, then 10. I'm looking at the second last row where it says x-axis along order date. So then 20, 30, and it will go till here to 180. So we are basically plotting 180 points if we are not using the spacing of 10. So if we use the spacing of 1, you can see how the graph changes. But these are 180 points on this particular straight line, which we don't want in this case. So we want to show the curve. So I will use minimum these points, right? So that's the purpose of hard coding this value on the x-axis, where we are showing these 180 points, right? So all these 180 calculation is hard coded. So that's the x-axis created. So now we need to do the similar thing to create y-axis. And for y-axis, we are doing the same thing. We are using the modulus function, and we are saying if segment number modulus 2 equal to 0, then give me the same segment with a negative line. Otherwise, give me the curve. So this is for the straight line, and this is for the curve. And what is this error? So I guess I'm missing the end. There you go. So that works fine. So now we have created. So I will show you what I mean as well with this one. So if I go back to the dashboard, so this is our y-axis and this is our x-axis. So with the y-axis, we are saying if the segment mod 2 equal to 0. So in this case, our segment is 0. If you look at the 5th row, right? And this mod 2 is equal to 0. In this case, it's 0. Segment is 0 divided by 2 equal to infinity. So it won't work in this case. But if you see this one, here we are saying the segment mod 2 in this case is not equal to 0. So 1 divided by 2 is not equal to 0. So then we are using the function, the calculation for the curve. But in this case, if you see, the segment is 2. So 2 divided by 2, 2 mod 2, the remainder is 0. So in this case, we are showing the segment or the y as minus 2. So y is, in this case, if you see the third last row, y is equal to minus 2, which is equal to minus of the segment number of the order date. So hope that makes sense. So that's what we are trying to use it here. So let's go back to the calculation again. So that's what we are using here. So if segment number mod 2 equal to 0, then we are simply saying show me the negative value of the segment number, which is used for the straight line but in the opposite direction, and otherwise show the curve for y-axis. So we only have two curves, one on the left hand side and on the right hand side, so we are using this calculation for that. So now that we have all the calculation created, so let's start with creating the worksheet. So first of all, we will change the marks to circle, and we will bring order date mark to detail mark, and we will do the same thing for the color mark. So we have all these colors created. So in this case we are using quarter, so let me create it for weeks. So you can see, actually we can change it to year. I would like to see it by year, color coding, and the detail mark I will change it to weeks. So I will have the path for each individual week in these 4 years. Now I will drag the X coordinates to the column shell and Y coordinate to the row shell. And I will right click on the drop down and change the compute using to order date for both of them. And you will see the chart started to look like this. And now we can do a bit of formatting and adjustment to do a bit of fancy stuff. So first of all, if I change it to line chart, and then I will bring again the week into the paths tab, you will see it give me a straight line, right? And now we want to use the y-axis to highlight particular events, for example. So first of all, we will create a dual axis, and I will change the dual axis in this case to circle. You can see all the circles appear, and I will synchronize the axis. First of all, create the dual axis and then synchronize the axis, so you will see all the dots appear on top of each other, right? So you can do multiple things with this one. So you can bring the sales number in this case, or any other measure in your particular scenario, you can use that. So in this case, I will use the sales number in the size, and you will see how it shows the sales over particular weeks. Like this one, the sales is 35 grand, but if you see the smaller circle, it's 3 grand for that particular week. So you can show it this way as well. And also, if you want to show a particular event, so in this case, let's say I want to show all the sales which are greater than 30 grand, right? So these are the main, it can be the main campaign running during that time or a particular event during that time. So we can do it in this way. So we will create a sales calc, and here I will say if sum of sales is greater than 30 grand, right? And it's a Boolean calculation. So I will simply I will first of all change the circle into shapes, and I will bring the sales calculation and go to shape, and you will see the squares are the one which have sales greater than 30 grand, right? So I will simply go to the shapes, and I want to use custom shapes. So in this case, I have used particular kind of shape. So for a true calculation, let's say I want to show, in this case, I will use a dollar sign, right? And for false, I want to just show nothing. So I have a transparent image here. So I will apply that, and I can then increase the size. So here, so this is the transparent image which is coming through. So actually that I choose the wrong image there. So I guess I need to choose another image in this case. Let me find if I have any other transparent image. Will this one work? Yep. So here's the transparent image. So I can increase the size the way I want. So this can show you the events happening during these 2 weeks. Only these 2 weeks have sales greater than 30,000. So you can change these calculations and adjust the way you want it. So a bit more formatting. So I don't want these headers to be shown. So I will unhide this one, unhide this one. So this is the x-axis, I don't want it. And with the borders, I don't want any row dividers. I don't want column dividers. And no grid lines. And no zero axis lines. So this is how you can see it. And even if you want to still show the other values, in this case where you want to highlight other weeks, you can do it the way I just showed you. Hope you guys enjoyed this session, and if you have any questions, please feel free to drop me a message or in the comment section below. Thank you. Catch you next time.